Hi Uprisers, it is Tricia LaCroix once again with Sacred Uprising Institute and Conference. And today we have Candise. And Candise, she's a new teacher here on Sacred Uprising, and she will be talking about marriage, the sacred path. And this actually came from a conversation that she and I had. She will be coming on to my video on Thursday, my series, Calling in the One, to talk about how she called in hers and what she did to do that. I want to, though, remind everybody we have a conference that is coming up September 18th, 19th, and 20th. It is Sacred Uprising Conference right outside of Santa Cruz, California. And we're really excited about it. All the teachers that you see teaching here on these videos will be at the conference. We're putting it together, and our website will be available here within the next week for you to go ahead and take advantage of the early bird special. It is about, Sacred Uprising is about infinite love, the one, loving yourself, having that love who you are is what God is, and calling that into your life, letting it change you internally and allowing it to change your external world. While waiting for Candise, I just want to mention that tomorrow, this is our last video for today, and tomorrow we have Bliss. She will continue her series of the Conscious Evolver. Action is tomorrow's subject matter. And then we will have Terry Stanley, our energy healer, and she will be talking about the chakras in detail. So let's see, Candise, let me see if I can just add you. Everyone just hold on. I've mentioned this several times. It's always a little bit of trying to bring somebody new on. It's always difficult to try to figure it out. And then next week our teachers are going to be doing every other week now. We have so many teachers that are coming on board and are joining the Sacred Uprising platform. So now you'll start seeing new teachers every week, and though we have some that will be finishing up their series before they go to an every other week. So Candise, okay, hold on everyone. Courtney, can you message her please? So, okay, we'll just wait for a few moments to see if Candise can jump on here. Hi Candise. So there's Candise. Okay, I need you to hit it's on the bottom. It'll say add to video. I already invited you to come onto the video. So I just need you to accept it. Sorry guys, this always takes, there she is. She's coming on, hold on. And then we can start. So put in your calendars for the Sacred Uprising Conference. We're really excited about the conference. So it's gonna be at Mount Madonna. That's a venue right outside of Santa Cruz, California. And it is a meditation center. So they have everything there from, they have outdoor activities. Hey Candace. Hi. Hey.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Every time we have somebody new coming on, it always takes a minute. So no worries whatsoever. Right. So I'm telling everybody just briefly about our conference that's going to take place in September. It has outdoor activities. We're in this beautiful conference center that overlooks, you can see the ocean. We'll have shamanic journeys. We're going to have meditations. All of our teachers will be there. And so there's bookstores, yoga stuff there. It's an amazing place. So go check it out on mountmadonna.org. But I'd like to go ahead and start. Candise, I've been so excited since you and I spoke. So Candise is coming on to Calling in the One on Thursday. And Candise was telling me about how she called in her beloved. And so that's something that we're going to talk about. She might talk about it a little bit here today. But one of the things that I had mentioned to you was that I have had a vision regarding Charles and I that as soon as we sign the marriage certificate. Now, again, first I want to say, I don't believe marriage is for everybody, but for me, it's my sacred path. And yes. I've seen this vision that as soon as we sign that and we get married, there are going to be things that are going to be transforming our life with abundance and different things that we're going to be doing. but it really has to do with the marriage certificate. And I've reached out and I've talked to a few of my spiritual friends, and many, all of them except you, said, well, Trisha, I think that is not, God doesn't care about the contract. The spirit world doesn't care about that. I think you're just thinking about commitment. I'm like, no, for me, it is the contract. There's something about that contract. And that is why we're doing this video today. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say, Candise.
Thank you. And I think that that is such an important topic to bring up right now. One of the things that I like to look at is I like to look at what the benefit is. So rather than pointing out, where people may be right or where they may be wrong, it's not a right or wrong thing. Like, I like how you brought up the fact that marriage is not necessarily the sacred path for everybody. And I think that for a lot of people that are on a conscious path, consciously choosing not to step into marriage is the sacred path for them, because there has been a lot that's happened throughout the patriarchy that took this sacred contract of marriage and made it into more of a bondage type contract, especially for women. So I absolutely do think that this is not necessarily a path that everybody is going to feel called to. One of the reasons why I like to speak on this is because I find that there is not a lot of voice in support of marriage as a sacred contract. It's almost as if the pendulum has swung so far to the other side that people like you and I who do feel called to walking this path can sometimes get the message that it is not as evolved, or that there is something less than, or that marriage is about being attached rather than being open in love. And that has not been the reality for me. So when I started my priestess training, the high priestess, one of the things that she did with us is she would do one-on-one sessions, and a part of that was going through our astrological chart. And so when she was looking at my astrological chart, one of the things that became apparent was that very much intertwined in my sacred work was going to be stepping into a marriage partnership. And, I had all of these preconceived notions that I hadn't really been able to fully own and heal at that point, about this idea that I was going to have to choose between the two, that I was going to have to choose between being married or walking a spiritual path. So the first time that I had this high priestess give me the this idea that it was going to be a part of my path, that completely, it opened up such a freedom within me. But then I really started contemplating, what does that mean for me? When I met my beloved and I felt as though we were called to enter into marriage, there really needed to be a deeper purpose to me, rather than just this idea that, well, I feel like I love him strongly and like he loves me strongly. That to me could have just been, well, a commitment, and I've heard people say that we'll stay together, as long as we're both happy, or as long as we're both walking the same path. And those are valid and wonderful intentions to set. For me, if I was going to be stepping into this role of marriage as a sacred path, then it absolutely was something that was going to be, a forever in this lifetime and in this incarnation. Now, my husband and I, we did have a conversation about, was this going to be a contract of eternity or for this lifetime, which is a whole other decision that each couple can make. But what came to me and what came out in our vows was it's a two-part thing for me with marriage as a sacred path. So one is that I committed to being with this person and practicing the tool of transfiguration. So for anybody who isn't aware of what that word is, or if it has a bit of an old school religious connotation, to transfigure somebody or something is to be able to look at them so deeply that you see past the appearance and you see to the center of them, to where their God self or their source self is. So when we stepped into marriage, it was going to be me honoring him as an incarnation of source in the flesh, and he was going to be doing that back for me. So that within the marriage, we were learning on a daily basis how to not be stuck in attachment to personalities, attachment to conflict, attachment to people, to be able to really honor. And then how that became a path of service to the rest of the world was that, and that was a part of my vows too, was that the more I learned how to honor him as an appearance of source, that the more I was going to then take that out into the world at large. So
Right.
I would learn at home how to work at transfiguring and seeing him as a divine being, so that I could go out in the world and I could behold everybody as divine beings.
That is absolutely beautiful. Before I met Charles, I had Source. I was in the car driving, and Source came in. And what I was told is that when I would be in the ceremony of marriage, that I would look at him and see God within him, and he would look at me and see God within me. And so it's interesting
Yes.
that you said that, because that's specifically, and I have it recorded and I've listened to it many times. That's what's being saying, that I will see God in him, period, and he would see him in me. So that's really
Yes.
interesting that you have the same message.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And like I said, I mean, up until I had met my husband, I had actually decided that I was not going to be getting married in this lifetime. As a child, I really wanted to. And then the further I went on my path, the more I decided I wasn't. And then I had this meeting with the priestess, and that opened my mind. And then I was with, my beloved before we were married, and it became apparent. And to me, like when I would contemplate what being in love, even this idea of being in love, that was something that I had to really contemplate, because the further I went on my path, the more I learned about some of these really big mystical truths, this idea of oneness. We are all one. So
Right.
if we're all one being and we're all equal, then what does that mean? That I'm in love with one person, or that I choose one person to marry? So for me, I remember, I do a lot of channeling, and even before I knew that that's what it was, I would often like ponder things, and it would come out in my writing. And I remember at one point it coming through to me that the person I fell in love with would be the person that it was easiest for me to see God in, and that
Yes.
was what the gift was. It wasn't that he was any better than any other man or woman that I would meet, or that it wouldn't be anything more than that. And so that's the gift. If I can have that one person where I'm able to tap into that ability easiest, then I can build on that. And I really try to focus on the fact that the deeper I'm able to experience love and experience this connection with him, the deeper I'm able to do that on a universal level as well. So it's not, definitely as a human, I have, such a big connection to him because of how long we've been together, and because, I was able to recognize him as a twin flame right away. So there's definitely all of those beautiful feelings and those beautiful emotions, but the non-attachment part comes to recognizing that on a deeper level, that is the type of love that I can tap into for all beings.
Right. And that's amazing, because there's a safe training ground for that, isn't it? So when you're with your beloved,
Yes.
there's that safe training ground that you can see God. And that's how I knew Charles when I met him. I looked at him, saw his eyes, and I knew it, because I had been preparing for God to come into my life. I was so in love with my creator. I was in love. It wasn't just love. I was in love with my creator. I was already in love with that vibration. So when Charles walked up, I saw his eyes, and I saw the creator within him. And I was immediately, and I wrote this to him the other day, I was surrounded in this flow of love that has never left. It's never wavered. There's never been these big high highs and low lows. It's been this beautiful flow of love. In fact, when he told me that he loved me, that's what he said. He said, I've loved other women, and it was very ego driven, meaning, which wasn't bad, but it was that I loved them because of how they made me feel, and they loved me the same. He goes, but with you, he goes, I feel love all around me. It's like a flow, and our love is bigger. He goes, love I have for you is bigger than myself. And there's something different about it.
There's a difference between the quality, like when we talk about the chakras, like the heart chakra is connected to universal love, which is that, that love that doesn't have preferences. And that's what I noticed when I went on the first date with Alejandro, I felt it in my heart. And it was such a vastness, and with our story, there was a lot of obstacles that were in the way. Like there was immigration and living on different coasts and different sides of the country, and finances. And it was like we were just so committed to that vibration of love that it was just this beautiful time in my life where I got to see how that power of love worked. Like anything that seemed like an obstacle, it just melted under that energy and under that frequency of love. And so that's the other thing that I find with marriage as a sacred path, is that it's about remembering what that frequency of love is in its purest essence, and then being able to tap into it again. And again, not just keeping it for him and I, but then learning how to bring that out into the world. One of the other things that, so one of the other things that came to me when I was really going into what this meant as a sacred path, and it gets to be a little bit, I don't know what the word is. It gets to be a little bit vast, but is like, okay, so if we look at this truth that we were talking about, that we are all one being, you know, there's these tricky spots. So it was traditional for people to say two become one in marriage. And then we kind of got to the place where we were growing in our self-help and our awareness and stuff. And it was like, well, I'm not one half and you're one half, and we come together and we become one whole. That's not healthy. But I do think that there's this truth behind this idea of two become one, in the idea that when you have two whole integrated people coming into a marriage, to me, that marriage contract, it becomes the foundation. It becomes the cork that comes into the container of this love. And so what was revealed to me is that the marriage contract actually becomes the root chakra of this new being that I have been able to, in my human, merge into oneness with another human. And now I'm a new being, me and this person and our source energy flowing together. And, you know, I think the idea is that eventually we'll all learn how to merge together, and we'll all become this one, merged oneness, and float off into the ethers or whatever. But that's not where we're at as a collective right now. But I'm able to start experiencing that with one other person through this marriage contract. So like I said, I see that marriage is like the root chakra of this new being and this new essence that the two of us become.
I agree with you. And that's how I viewed it. There's something, like I said, there's something about the marriage contract for Charles and I, that it is bringing heaven to earth. It is bringing the spiritual into the physical. It is grounding us into this dimension. So as Source's love flows between us. Now, if it wasn't for this love, we wouldn't be here on Sacred Uprising. If it wasn't for this love, we wouldn't, I've seen and I've heard, and even this morning, lives being changed and transformed just because of this simple platform, because of this love. And it's not because of me. It's not because of him. It's because there is God's love flowing within us. And that's powerful. That is incredibly powerful. And I want to say once again, because I've seen a few additional people joining us as we've been talking, we mentioned on the beginning of this video, the path for marriage is not for everybody. There's a sacred path of maybe a commitment ceremony. There's a sacred path of maybe just loving Source in many different forms through many different people. There is the sacred path of marriage. And this is just one of the paths that we're talking about.
Exactly. And that there isn't one path that's more powerful than another either.
Right.
And I think that that's important too, is that, because again, on the other side of the coin, if we get into the third dimensional realm, for such a long time, two people falling in love, agreeing to commit to one another, and being in a traditional marriage relationship has been presented as the norm and as the goal to attain. And I think that a lot has been accomplished by women and men really claiming that, well, that doesn't need to be my life goal, to just find some other person that will agree to stay with me until we're buried, right? It's this idea that some of us that are on a conscious path feel as though we are being called into this ceremony that has for a long time been connected to some old-fashioned ideas, but it's looking at it from a new light, looking at it from what is the sacred medicine that exists beneath this. What has been covered over to take away some of this magic, and how do we step into it, and how can I define for myself why I feel called to include marriage as a part of my path.
Right. So when you got married to your beloved, how did that transform your life?
Well, it's interesting because so his name is Alejandro. So when one of the things that I like to say, especially because I also do work with people where I do psychic work with them, and I like to explain that, like, I really, I'm not somebody who claims to be a fortune teller, and even if I had that ability, I don't know that I would go there. So, I'm not into fortune telling, and, most people, they want to know about finances or they want to know about romance. And one of the
Right.
things that I try to make sure that I let people know is that I in no way claim that I have the magic recipe that's going to, like, be able to tap everybody into falling in love. There's tools, you and I will talk about it on Calling in the One. There's things that you and I have both done that really opened us up, but I do not think that there is a one size fits all. So I think that there is a level of mystery that exists with this that's beautiful, and I don't need to uncover the full mystery. So I know that sometimes there is this idea that we're sold that we need to, we're almost given this impression that we have to have perfected ourselves before we're going to be ready to fall in love. And that was not the case for my husband and I. So when I met him, he was at a place in his life where he really was working with a lot of shadowy aspects in his life. And he was really finding himself and finding his joy. And, he was at a place where he was struggling in his life. And then I came in, and, our love was like this breath of fresh air. And, there's still people in his family that attribute us falling in love with his life changing, and that is not actually the case. The love kind of inspired him to continue on his path, and he found his own path, and he's found his own joy. So in the beginning of our relationship, it was really about, like, him and I just focusing on our love while he was doing his own work to kind of heal these shadowy areas. And then we got to a place where, it was just like, he was good, I was good, we were both happy. And then I had some shadow stuff that I hadn't realized I hadn't fully processed. I mean, I had been doing so much work on myself for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden this new piece came up, and it was huge, and it was based in trauma, and I had never faced it before. And I don't know that I would have been able to walk through it without him. He really was able to hold space in such a beautiful way that I had never experienced before. And it was a good long year of me walking through this. But I felt like I came out the other side of it actually right before we had our marriage ceremony. So it's like we both kind of walked through our dark nights of the soul, and then we came together and we had this marriage ceremony. And our ceremony was on December 21st of 2012, which was when the Mayan calendar was ending. So it had all of this energetic significance behind it for us. And so when we stepped out of that, it felt as if we had both stepped into being in this new being. And then it was just, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like there was this click that happened, and it was almost like when you're on the phone, they've got these different filters now, and there's like the one you can hit, and it has like these little white sparkles that come down, and everything's just a little extra bright. It was like that. It was like these this filter came down, and then all of a sudden it was just like it was solidified in an energetic way, where it would be like if you were walking down a hall and there was open doors and the doors had all been closed, so there was this single focus, and it actually felt as though it took some of the energy and the focus into us being together away, and just brought the focus back into our spiritual path as a couple. Which has been a really big part of our path, has been the spirit work that we do together as well. And, we went on to have children. We have 2 young children now, so that takes up a lot of our time. But it was like this anointing that came in, where the energy now got to be focused on us bringing our hearts together in connection to spirit, rather than our hearts together and continuing to try to feed the relationship to tend it or take care of it. It's like that part was taken care of now.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I wanted to do this video because I wanted people, the spiritual people who are, there's so many of us that we want love and they're anti-marriage because of, you're exactly right. It's like the change, it's the bondage, but there's something higher than that. There's a higher vibration of that. And if you're called to that, not to feel the pressure of not doing it from your other spiritual friends, to understand there is, everything is, so, you know, Christy talks about Christy's our astrologer, and what she talks about is that for whatever your signs are, there are so many different levels of vibrations of those signs. So you can start like Saturn. I think it's Saturn. There's a low vibration where he's the taskmaster. He puts you in the chains. But the higher vibration of Saturn is Mr. Miyagi. He's going to give you wisdom. And it's the same thing with marriage, that you can have a low vibration marriage where it is bondage. It is, you know, what we tease about, you know, the woman is pregnant and barefoot and cooking and doing
Yes.
everything around the house. But there is also a higher vibration where it's a true partnership. There are no defined roles. You are acting as one. So when the right hand isn't doing it, the left hand does, or however that works. That it is, that there's an anointing on it that is source having a relationship, coming into the physical realm to have a purified relationship, so that you two can do something that is bigger than yourselves, and whatever that means, whether it's on the stage or whether it's in your home or whether it's changing lives one person at a time in private. But there's something bigger than that, and that is my path. And I was so thrilled to find you who that is your path. And when I said it, and I felt it with you, and I said it, and you validated that, yes, it is sacred. I don't have to keep hearing people say, no, Trisha, it has nothing to do with it. It's just about commitment because God doesn't care. I'm sorry. For me, it matters.
Yes, and it's interesting that you bring that up too, because it's like, again, it's about when you mentioned the astrology too. I want to say I watched that live feed. It was amazing.
Yes.
I've been studying astrology for like 19 years, and that concept that she had it's been great. I've been completely revolutionizing my personal chart. But yeah, taking that idea of the levels of awareness and the levels of vibration. And so what I noticed, you know, when you're talking about that anointing and that connection is there, is that when the focus is on like, what is the purpose of this marriage? And when this marriage is not for me, this marriage is to glorify the love of Source, then that does, it goes into the gifts that we offer the world. And so like with my husband, you know, with his personal upbringing, he had been brought up, you know, very wealthy and stuff. So he had been kind of taken care of for a long time. And then that wealth kind of went away, and he was searching for his path, and he just, you know, did whatever he had to make ends meet. And then he just all of a sudden was called to this path to work with water, which is very much in his astrological sign too. And so he felt very inspired with this. So he went and he did his studying, and he did all these interviews, and then he, you know, he got the job, and it was like he was in his passion, and he was going to be working with water, and he's going to be blessing the waters. And like we've watched this beautiful, you know, message by this native woman about what happens when we talk and pray into the water. And it's like the first thing we did, I mean, we did this before he wrote his test, before he would send out his resumes, but before his first day of work, is we came together as a couple, and we came together in prayer, and we brought this love that we have, and was like, okay, now take this essence and shine it through him as he goes into this workspace, and as he goes into blessing this water that's going to be blessing the community that we have. You know, and with my priestessing work, it's the same thing. It's like he has come together with me before. You know, I was very reticent to put my face forward. I work a lot with, you know, if people see my priestess name, it's Priestess of Grace. It's about receiving and stuff. So, you know, putting my name out there, putting my face out there, it was all stuff that I really was holding back from. And he would feel that call to, you know, to support me in going into that. And so there was something about this dynamic that we had back and forth, where we were able to be this conduit for Source's love, and also sometimes for Source's voice to speak between us, that it was able to just create this container where we could contact and experience Source in a stronger way than we could when we were doing this journey solo.
Right. Wow. That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. So let me ask you this. What work do you do with people so our viewers know, and how can they get in contact with you?
So what I do with people is I work one-on-one or in couples. I offer spiritual counsel. I do psychic channeling for people. I also do energy work, and then I facilitate ritual and ceremony, which I think is such a powerful tool that we have often kind of lost touch with, especially rites of passage. And they can find me I have a Facebook page, Priestess of Grace, and then also they can contact me through my blog, which is priestessofgrace@wordpress.com, and they can message me there, or on my personal priestess page as well. They can message me for any of my services.
Can you, after we're done with this video, can you put the link to your page so people can find you on Facebook, and as well as on WordPress as well? Please feel free to do that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I am so excited about having this conversation with you, and I certainly hope that while we're talking on Thursday, and I'm really grateful that you're going to join me on my video on Thursday, but that we can have some more conversations, because I really enjoy how you articulate your thoughts and what you know and what you've experienced. And I think that can be just so amazing, a life changer for our viewers. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I just want to say, like, if there is anybody that's out there that really feels like this longing on their heart and feels any sort of shame, or as though it's somehow getting in the way of their spiritual path, to just encourage them that, to me, my experience was that calling was the calling of Source. And that this idea of being in a loving partnership got to be a way to honor and to love Source in the flesh, and that it doesn't need to be either or, and that in fact this can be a path that magnifies our connection and deepens our relationship to God. And I think it can be one of, I think it can just be a very beautiful path. So thank you so much for bringing this topic to everybody's awareness.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, Uprisers, that is all of our video for today. Don't forget, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will be moving forward with Bliss on the Conscious Evolver. The subject is action. So until tomorrow, thank you. It was so good. All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.